We're talking to Pastor Walker from the Hands of God Christian Church. And of course, he's talking about the Hands of God recovery ministry that is operated out of his church. And of course, Reverend Walker, before we finish today and during this last segment, let's give you an opportunity to continue to talk about incarceration, but in a real sense, talk to young people, the individuals who might get caught up in this whole fact of crime that will eventually lead to incarceration, because I think, as you've already indicated, that even though an individual might commit some crime and he serves his time, that it's still almost impossible for him to have a gainfully employed occupation. Right. And of course, I think that you are an excellent example of what can be done, and more than anything, we'd like for you to deal with it from that perspective.
Well, you know, the Bible says that my people perish for a lack of knowledge. And people always tell you, and I remember growing up, Dr. Haney, people say, well, what you don't know won't hurt you. But that's absolutely incorrect, because what you don't know can really mess you up. Not realizing, you know, that if I go out here and commit just a little petty crime and get convicted of that crime, and it's a felony, it's going to follow me for the rest of my life. It's going to affect me in my relationship. It's going to affect me in my job. It's going to affect me when I try to go to get in school. It's going to always be a spot on my record. It's going to always follow me. So I would say to the young people, to like my daddy used to always tell me, stop, slow down, study yourself, and think. You know, stop for a while and look at what's going on around you. See what the real picture is all about. What am I really looking at when I step out of my door and I see all my friends, they're out there slanging dope and they're doing that thing and they're running around, they got their music bumping loud and they're doing all this stuff and they're running around with their pants hanging off. What am I really seeing? What is this picture really showing me? I mean, is that a picture of freedom, or is that a picture of some form of slavery? You know, because I mean, I submit, Dr. Haney, that if we involve ourselves in that type of lifestyle, then what we are actually doing, we are enslaving ourselves, and we're actually penalizing ourselves and keeping ourselves away from mainstream society. You know, we say, well, okay, I can't do this and I can't do that, but at the same time, then we got our young people that are doing the things that would actually make what they're saying a reality. So if I put myself in a certain mode, first of all, I'm labeling myself. Then when the authorities are looking out up on who's doing what, then they're looking at me because I got my pants down. I've got my mouth loaded with gold. You know, I'm riding down the street, you know, in a car that's worth $200 with a $3,000, $4,000 sound system in, and I'm violating all the noise and all. So they're looking at me. So I'm the one that they're going to target. I pass by in my suit, you pass by in your suit, but then his next guy, he passed by fitting that profile, then they're going to pass us by and they're going to stop this guy, and he may not even be doing nothing.
And that's what they mean by profiling.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. They're looking at us. You know, they're looking at us, and we have got to learn how. Young people have got to learn how to change your image. You've got to change the image that you have, because you can't expect people to treat you with respect when at the same time you're treating yourself disrespectful. And I know a lot of people say, well, it's the style to walk around, you know, with your pants hanging off and all of that, but who created it, and what is the purpose of it? You know, all we have to do is just really sit down, young people, is just ask yourself questions. Because a lot of times we take things at face value and we never question why we do what we do. And therefore we end up caught up in that system, and then that system has certain things attached to it, and one of the things attached to it is incarceration. You know, when you're caught up in that, you do the things that's done, you know, in terms of selling drugs and stealing and gang banging and doing all of that stuff, and what's attached to all of that system right there is incarceration, mental institutions, all that stuff, drug addiction, everything is attached to that. So once you involve yourself in it, then you open yourself, you sit yourself in the middle of a circle of sorts and allow each one of those veins to just come into whatever you are and wherever you sit. And so that's what I say to the young people, to remove yourself from that situation and get an understanding, get some knowledge, get some information, and stop listening to people that don't know what they're talking about. You know what I'm saying?
You know, I'm reminded, Pastor Walker, that we did a show a long time ago with you and Brother Johnson.
Yes.
And I think that he had a program called Choices. And that's essentially what you're telling young people today, that they really have to make a choice themselves in terms of whether or not they're going to become involved in whatever, and et cetera, and the importance of it. Speak to the importance of education, why they ought to try to stay and become involved in the politics of this country, and et cetera.
Dr. Haney, because, and I've talked to people a lot of time, And because of that lack of desire to seek knowledge, you know, we miss out on the whole process. We need to be involved with what goes on in this country. I mean, people are complaining about what the senators, the Congress, the president, and everybody's doing, and then you ask the same individual, man, did you vote? And they'll say, no, I didn't vote. Well, the vote is what gives you a voice in this country. The vote determines who goes in office, who speaks on your behalf, who's got your best interests at heart. And if you're not educated to how this system works in this country, then I suggest that you get educated. You need to find out, you know, what the Constitution is all about, how these things, how the voting process works, and what role that each individual plays in the process, and quit sitting around fooling ourselves thinking, well, my vote don't count. Well, of course it don't count if you don't cast it. You know what I'm saying?
That's a thought.
You know?
That's a very, very important thought, too, that, yeah, you've got to become involved in it, and they can become involved. But again, I think, as you've indicated, if they become incarcerated, that so many of them are penalized for that incarceration, and one of the things that they lose their right to vote.
And I need to say, too, Dr. Haney, that there are some great minds in the prison system, and people that could really get out and really have a valid opinion about what goes on. But yet, and I think, Dr. Haney, that the system knows this, that knows that these people that go in here, they get into books, they educate themselves, and they find out what's really going on, because it's easier to see society when you have been removed from the framework of society. And see, I've been there. In prison, I learned a whole lot of stuff. I read a lot of books in prison. Of course, I came out, I was still a criminal, but I soaked up knowledge and information. And there are guys that's soaking up knowledge and information that's not going to come out and still be a criminal. They're going to come out and they're going to be, they have a desire to be constructive and productive citizens of society, willing to pay taxes, willing to do what's necessary to get ahead and do the things in life. But I think the system knows that, and it's kind of like some kind of stifling effect. It's got to be in place to keep these people from going and getting where they want to go.
So in spite of this whole idea of rehabilitation and et cetera, you think that there still might be the attitude among many people that this individual has been incarcerated, and they probably know that once he goes back into society that he's going to have a difficult problem getting a job and et cetera. So they feel that it might be best to just keep him as long as you can, and then wait for him to come back.
And that's happening too, especially, I mean, telling you, man, especially with these privatized prison systems and stuff like that. To me, it's all a money thing anyway. So they got people caught up in the systems and stuff like that. And I mean, parole board after parole board after parole hearing, and they're still incarcerated, and they're keeping them in the system because they know that because they're not teaching them anything, the chances are they're going to come back. But the thing is, rehabilitation is supposed to be the purpose of incarceration, along with punishment, of course. But when I was incarcerated, rehabilitation was a joke. I'm seeing some other things now in terms of rehabilitation programs and stuff like that, but they're still not on a larger scale. They're still not something that the state of Tennessee is actually supporting wholeheartedly to help these guys when they make that transition from incarceration to a free world society. And that's what's needed. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to put something in place.
So you think our public policy can be directed in terms of helping these young people, or helping these individuals, whether they're young or old, male or female, black or white, that we might be able to have a public policy that would sort of create a situation so these individuals could meet the challenges of
I would say that.
Going back into society, and that we stand short in terms of being a society if we can't do that. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And I'm going to give you a situation here, because people coming out of the prison system, they're going to eventually get out one day. Now, it's up to us to determine how do we want to see them when they come out of the system. There's a guy in there, there's a couple of guys in there, or maybe thousands of guys in there that may get incarcerated. They were selling drugs and probably got a lot of money still now. They're going to get out one day. Now, who's to say, because they got the money, they can move right next door to the judge. You know, they have the money, the means to do so. How do you want that individual to be when they come out, being your next door neighbor? And that can be determined on what kind of programs we're going to put in place in the prison system. What kind of programs are we going to put in place? And if not, state of Tennessee putting them in place, what kind of programs are we going to support that are already in place that's designed to help these people when they come out? Because when people, they deserve a chance. They deserve an opportunity, just like anybody else that has never, ever committed a crime. Everybody that commits murder is not really a murderer in that sense. Some people commit murder on a humble. You know, they're not intending to hurt anybody, not intending to do anything to anybody. They'll pull up a gun trying to shoot in the crowd and scare somebody, end up killing somebody or whatever. You know, it's a stupid act, but you know.
And of course, Reverend Walker, we're just running out of time.
My God.
We could continue to talk about this because you're giving us such excellent information. Let us encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.